everybody, Jedimanda here, and Yang is battle ready. She's got her robotic arm and now she's ready to go. Here's a tutorial on how you can make one just for yourself. Okay, here's some materials that you'll need. You'll need about a half a yard of Warbler. You'll need about a half a yard of stretch black vinyl fabric. Also some craft foam, and I'm using the McCall's 7397 pattern to make the gloves that Yaya produced for McCall's. Along with the additional items you see that I have listed on screen that I really didn't get a chance to film during this whole process because this was a bit of an interesting process for a tutorial, but you'll also need everything that's listed. Now the next thing you're going to want to do is go ahead and sketch out the entire look for the arm. If you look on the episodes and take some screenshots of the arm, you can kind of see all the different angles that you'll be using to make your pieces, because some of them I didn't even make that are included when she painted it yellow. So I went ahead and drew everything out that I knew I was going to make and colored it to my specific needs that I needed, so I can kind of have a map on where I want to go with this robotic arm, since it is a whole different piece that's a bit of out of my league. Alright, let's go ahead and cut out the pattern from the McCall's pattern that we bought. I used the upper length glove that goes all the way up the arm. Be careful cutting this out because it is really small, especially when you get to the finger bits. But it's really helpful to have a pattern. If you don't feel like buying your own pattern from McCall's, you can make it using your own arm for the pattern. There are several tutorials on YouTube and online to figure that out, but I went ahead and kind of took the easy route here. Once you have that pattern cut out, go ahead and lay it on your stretch vinyl, and let's chop out that first glove. Now you're gonna want to go ahead and just make a couple of cuts here, because I can tell you from experience it did take me a couple tries to do this, but be very careful when you are cutting it out, and let's go ahead and pin it together and throw it through that sewing machine. Make sure you use a zigzag stitch. I can't stress this enough. Or you can use your serger if you have access to one. I did about a 1/8 seam allowance with zigzag and a 1x1 zigzag all the way around this sucker. And it took me a lot of tries to fit this to my arm. Trust me on this. I can't stress this enough that it took me a long time to really get this fit right. So don't be afraid if it takes you more than once to redo this. Cut out several pieces of this glove so it can fit your arm right. And plus, you're only fitting it on your right arm. You're not fitting it on your other one. So it's okay to cut more out. Trust me, I went through about 3 different versions of this glove till I actually really loved the look. So it's okay. Gloves are extremely hard to make. I have no clue why, but once you get the fit down, you will find that you will really like wearing this glove and it looks really nice on you. So don't be afraid. Keep going if you make a mistake, guys. So once I have the glove fitting perfectly that I want, I'm going to go ahead and start patterning all of the little tips and ring pieces that go onto the glove. Now I have a hand model. You can also kind of use your own hand with paper first to kind of pattern out the fingertips and the pieces on her fingers, because it has to be a movable robotic arm. So you're going to make a lot of these little pieces. Make sure you label them all and that you are using the right hand, because that's the one that fell off during season 3. So it's okay. Right now is what you want to do is you want to pattern everything out and make it to your liking. Try it on, take it off, use paper, tape, so you can get these looks right. So when you cut it out of the Warbler, you get it right the first time, basically. Okay, so now the patterning phase of the fingertips are done. I'm going to go ahead and draw out the pieces onto the craft foam. Now, I actually did not use the fingertip craft foam pieces because they were way too bulky with the Warbler covered, so I actually just used the fingertips patterns on the Warbler and bent them as how I wanted them. Here, I'm using my little hand model and finding the craft foam pattern for the palm of the hand, And that's actually a really simple pattern that I just drew out on the model. You can also use your regular hand, and this I did include with the Worbla, so it's a sandwich, the craft foam in the Worbla. I did the same thing for the upper part gauntlet area, and then the upper arm pieces also, using the craft foam as a pattern piece for that. It's really simple, plus this stuff is really cheap, so you can easily use it to narrow out all of your patterns that you need for this arm, and ultimately use the craft foam as a sandwich under the Worbla to make it more sturdy. If you don't want to use Worbla, you totally do not have to. You can actually just use craft foam. Just remember to seal it really good before you paint it. I'm using paper right now to go ahead and pattern out the gauntlet part. Really easy. I just taped it around my arm and drew out the look that I needed, and then cut it out, transferred it to the craft foam. Pretty simple here. So right now I actually have the look of all the base pieces that I want. I'm actually going to start putting some detailing on it. I'm making a little bit of a raised piece on the gauntlet, as well as some other tiny little, they look like buttons basically, that I'm also cutting out of craft foam and attaching to the foam so the Worbla can go over it, to give it some dimension, to give it some look instead of being really flat, which is hard to do with 2D animation stuff to make it look three-dimensional. But that's why I cut out that little insert right there. Right now I'm actually making the pieces that go on the upper arm, and I kind of found this out later that with her jacket, with the season 4 finale look, that is completely covered. So these pieces are completely optional if you want to do that. But if you're doing the cosplay of the cargo pants and just orange tank top, I suggest making these pieces so it looks like it goes up and over her elbow and not just stops at her elbow. Okay, everybody, now is the time to cut out everything. Make sure you have all of these tiny little pieces labeled. Once again, I did not use the finger pieces that I cut out of the craft foam because it was too bulky with the Worbla. But if you're not using Worbla, make sure you label all of these pieces on the craft foam when you cut them out, because they will get everywhere and all of your fingers are the same size. So make sure you know which one's going where. So right now I'm actually adding the raised details that I cut out of the craft foam. I am adhering them together via hot glue, and then I will be placing the Worbla on top of them and starting the heat gun process. Guys, it's Worbla time. Go ahead and grab your about a half a yard, not that much Worbla you really need for this thing, but go ahead and grab your Worbla and get your pieces so we can start cutting this stuff out. I suggest marking on the smoother side and cutting out on that side. Honestly, it really doesn't matter, but as long as you have everything marked, and if you're using the sandwich method, to leave about a 1/4 inch seam allowance when you're cutting out from the line that you're already marked, so you are able to fold that under to get a nice smooth edge. Once again, do not forget to label everything because you're cutting out a lot of pieces. Make sure everything is labeled, that it goes exactly where it needs to go. So now everything is cut out. I am folding up the finger pieces right now. I'm using my own hand to make sure everything fits right. So if you're using a heat gun, and especially Warbler with this, careful, everything gets kind of hot. But go ahead and fold up your Warbler. I, once again, do not suggest using the sandwich method with craft foam because it's way too bulky and you actually really cannot bend your fingers. So you want these pieces to actually be pretty thin so you have mobility within your hand. Make sure you just keep trying them on and don't forget to label all of them once again. I'm right now adhering the Warbler to my gauntlet piece, making sure that fits great around my arm, and I'll be doing the same for the palm piece and the upper arm pieces here soon. Here's the final look of all the pieces put together, labeled, and heat molded to my arm basically. So now we're ready to prime the Warbler before we paint it. What I'm using is this Plasti Dip to prime my Warbler to give it a nice smoother finish. Right there is where I sprayed it. I do suggest you spray this outside, not really inside. It's kind of toxic. So please use proper precautions on that, but give it about 2 to 3 coats of the gray Plasti Dip, and then once that dried, I went about 3 coats of the yellow gloss spray paint, which I liked, but I didn't really like the gloss look a whole lot, so I actually covered it with acrylic paint to kind of tone down that gloss, and also it really wasn't matching my other yellows that I have with Yang. So do your paint job however you want. I suggest getting a matte and more opaque spray paint or several coats of acrylic. It takes a lot of coats of spray paint to cover up that gray Plasti Dip, but trust me, it's really worth it in the end. Once again here, I'm just using some acrylic yellow paint to cover up that. once everything was dry and had that look that I wanted for the yellow, I took some black paint and kind of cell shaded it around the grooves and angles of the gauntlet and other pieces because I wanted to give it an animated look. Plus I did the same thing on my other Yang gauntlets that I made, and this actually kind of pops it out a little bit. It gives it a little detailing than what you normally see in the show. Because this is 3D, it's not 2D life, right? So I went ahead and just used some black acrylic and went around some of the corner pieces to give it some finer detail. We're rounding home base, so go ahead and grab your favorite sealer and coat all of these pieces. I'm using the Mod Podge Glossy right now. Okay, so all your pieces are painted and sealed, so go ahead and grab your super glue and we're going to attach on all of the closures. Now, I went ahead and glued the the fingertips to the glove, and everything else kind of acted on as a ring. I didn't really know how it would come off my hand easily or not if I glued them directly to the glove, so I went ahead and used as a ring, kind of kept them off and labeled. So if you want to glue them, go for it. If you don't, it's okay. But I suggest using elastics and Velcro to slide the stuff on and slide it off. It's totally up to you what you want, but I would suggest attaching it with Gorilla Glue or super glue, not necessarily hot glue, because hot glue has a hard time adhering elastic and Velcro to Worbla. Super glue is a much better option. Make sure you try everything on and everything fits right and everything closes appropriately, stays where it's supposed to be, and then, oh my goodness, you have your Yang robotic arm. And I just fell in love with this. I'm so happy with the way it looked. I'm really proud of myself for doing something like this. I usually don't do a lot of Worbla making or armor, so I was really happy with the way this looked. With the way this looked, and everything stays on quite perfectly. Make sure you do a lot of maneuverability tests before you take it out on the con floor so you don't lose anything, like those little fingertip bits. Make sure they're nice and tight but don't cut off circulation. So try it out, have a lot of fun. I hope you guys really enjoyed this tutorial because I had a blast making this. If you have any questions, please comment below. I will be very happy to help, or tag me in your photos at Jedimanda. And I hope you guys have an awesome time being Yang Xiao Long. See ya!